Overheard my fiancée proclaiming her ex was the best lover she ever had, leaving me questioning our future and engagement. We had a group of friends over one night, and as the evening wore on, we all drifted into our own little groups. Some of us ended up in one room playing Texas Hold'em, while a couple others picked up a Lord of the Rings marathon in the next room. I figured my fiancée was part of the movie crowd, but it turns out she and one of her close friends were sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee and chatting quietly. We ran out of soda, so I decided to get up and head to the kitchen for more drinks and to grab a couple snacks. As I rounded the corner, I caught my fiancée's voice mid-sentence. Before I even managed to fully step into the kitchen, I heard her very clearly say, "Jason is great, but he will never be the lover that Bill was." And then she added, "It's not really fair to Jason though, Bill was just really gifted down there." At first, I seriously considered just heading right back to the card game, pretending we didn't have any more soda or food. But I hesitated, trying to collect myself. Instead, I made a little bit of noise to give a heads up before I walked in the door. Her friend's eyes caught mine as I entered, and I saw her make a quick face at my fiancée to warn her. My fiancée, completely unaware that I'd overheard anything, immediately stopped talking and greeted me, asking how I was doing and if I was having a good time. The temptation was strong to say something like, "About as much fun as a guy who isn't gifted down there can have," but somehow, I managed to keep it together. I just said I was fine, collected the snacks and soda in silence, and slipped back to the card game. I spent the rest of the night acting as if nothing was wrong, but internally, everything was spinning out. By the time I went to bed, I was completely wrecked. Sleep was impossible. Every possible feeling hit me in waves: anger, humiliation, depression, then anger again. I've never been jealous, never really what you'd call insecure, but that moment absolutely gutted whatever confidence I'd built over the years. I always used to think the male ego was a joke, something silly, almost a punchline, until mine got smashed to pieces that night. I made every effort to hide my feelings after that. I kept everything inside, determined that she would never know just how much that comment shattered me. But as days passed, my mood only darkened. I started avoiding her as much as I could, even though she grew suspicious. She didn't push, at least at first. Everything came to a breaking point when she tried to initiate sex a few days later and I just couldn't. I outright rejected her. Truth is, I hadn't planned to turn her down. I decided to just push through and move on, but as soon as she touched me, all I felt was this overwhelming shame and deep inadequacy. I couldn't get aroused. I couldn't even pretend. She asked me what was wrong and I blurted out that it was probably just stress from work, but she didn't buy it and wouldn't drop it either. There I was, lying naked in bed next to her, completely humiliated and unable to hide it. Eventually, I confessed. I told her exactly what I'd overheard. That blew everything wide open. First, she tried to say I must have misheard. But when I repeated her words verbatim, she was caught. There was no more denying it. She apologized and tried to listen to my feelings about the whole thing, but I already knew how unattractive that must be for her. I was a complete and utter emotional mess. She did her best, telling me she was satisfied with me, telling me I was a better person and that she didn't want anyone else, but all I could hear was that muffled mumbling from Charlie Brown specials, just a meaningless blur. It's been almost a month and, honestly, I have no desire to be with her sexually. Zero. She's understandably growing frustrated by this, and no matter how much I want to get past it, I just can't. It's not like she compared us and said we were both good lovers. She flat out said Bill was far superior, and that gifted down there may as well have been a branding iron to my psyche. No matter what people say about technique or using hands, tongue, or anything else, I can't change my size. She brushes it off any time I try to talk about it, insisting that nothing she can say will make it better because, even if she says something positive, I won't believe her anyway. She's probably right. Some extra context: Bill dumped her. It wasn't a mutual thing. She told me herself, early on in our relationship, that her ex broke her heart, left her in pieces, and that she wasn't even sure she was ready to be serious with anyone as a result. So it's not as if I can comfort myself with the idea that she just picked me. If Bill hadn't dumped her, odds are she wouldn't have left him. I have no idea if she'd still be with me if Bill suddenly walked back into her life, but the doubt is there now. I just feel myself checking out of the relationship bit by bit. Maybe this is petty or shallow, but hearing the person you love say to someone else that they preferred sex with someone who isn't you is absolutely soul-crushing. Her assurances that I'm a great person, or a good provider, or will make a wonderful husband, it just makes it worse. It makes me wonder if I lost my job or suddenly couldn't provide, would she stay, or care, or help me the way I thought I'd help her? Honestly, right now, I feel less like a lover and more like a good friend she's willing to have sex with. I know it's not rational, but my heart can't shake it. I'm totally lost. If this continues, I don't know how I'll move forward without breaking off the engagement. For the record, I need to clear up some misunderstandings. First, nobody was drunk when that conversation happened, neither of us drinks, and there wasn't even any alcohol in the house that night. Second, I'm not upset that she confided in her friend. It's just the content of what she said, and what I heard, that's what's tearing me apart. I wasn't really that upset at first about what happened, at least not about the part you might expect. What really got to me, and still does, is the realization that this is truly how she feels. That's what stings the most. But, after having time to stew on it and, honestly, seeing things from a different angle, I find myself even more bothered that she shared these feelings with her friend. I've never said anything about her to anyone that might make her look bad or lesser in any way. I keep replaying in my head her words, calling me an insecure manchild who needs to man up and do better. Well, the insecure part is probably true. I'll own that. But learning to do better just isn't in my hands. No matter what I do, I'll only ever be 7 inches long. Okay, maybe I give myself half an inch for my own ego. We've talked about this before, back when she tried to build me up. She'd say I was great in every way, except for the one thing I can't control. I'm not going to do anything reckless. This happened about a month ago, not last week or anything, but I do have to face a decision soon. It's not fair to either of us if I'm just drifting along in this relationship, not really committed anymore. She apologized when I confronted her, though it felt more like she was sorry I overheard it rather than sorry for saying it in the first place. If I hadn't caught her, I'm not sure she'd regret it at all. Still, since I told her I knew what she said, she's been a mess. Apparently, the idea that I might leave her is really upsetting her. I'm not sure how much I believe it all, but honestly, what reason would she have to lie about that now? I just know this whole mess has completely ruined any Christmas spirit we had this year. People keep asking about my background. I'm an engineer, she's a paralegal. Some have asked about her ex and how I know she was heartbroken over him. She and her ex had split about 9 months before I met her. As far as I know, he left because he wanted to be with another woman. According to her, he didn't cheat, just ended things so he could move on. I met her at a local workshop, and she actually approached me first, which led to us dating. On our 4th date, things started to get a bit physical, but then she broke down crying about her ex. That was a weird experience, holding someone who's crying over another man, but I stayed with her, just as a friend, and tried to respect her boundaries. We dated off and on for a couple more months, never getting too close physically because it was clear she wasn't over him. I kept myself in check, treating it more like a friendship than anything romantic for a while. Almost 2 months passed when she pulled me into her apartment and opened up about how much she appreciated my patience. She felt bad for dragging me along. That night, we finally became physical for the first time, and within 3 months, she was telling me that she loved me. So I know for a fact that she was still hung up on her ex when we first got together. I had hoped, maybe even convinced myself, that she was over him before all of this happened. Update 1. So many people have reached out to me, some in support, some just hurling insults, telling me that I need to hit the weights, bulk up, and transform myself into some kind of weightlifting god. I know most of these people probably mean well. Well, not all, because I've also been called every name imaginable by some, all while being told to just get stronger. Here's the thing they don't get, they're just assuming I fit that tired stereotype about engineers being weak or nerdy. That couldn't be further from the truth. Back in high school, I was a state finalist in wrestling. I even got a partial scholarship to a Division II school because of it. I wrestled hard during my freshman and sophomore years of college, pushing my body as far as it could go. Then, ironically, it was a stupid baseball throw that wrecked everything. I tore my rotator cuff. I was on the road to recovery, but physical therapy kept me from competing my junior year. By senior year, with my mounting workload and an increasingly serious relationship, I just couldn't give the time or energy demanded by wrestling. Wrestling isn't just a sport, it swallows your life. Even though I was far from my peak after I stopped training to compete, I didn't just turn to mush. I've kept myself in solid shape. I still lift, still hit the cardio, still go to the local gym on a regular basis. Lately, I've even had my ass handed to me by a buddy who does a Muay Thai workout. Keeping up with him isn't easy, and I'll admit my legs have a long way to go. That leads me to something else I need to get out. If you caught it, I said girlfriend back when I talked about college. Contrary to what people have been saying or assuming, I wasn't some incel or neckbeard before meeting my fiancée. I've had plenty of girlfriends, and yes, a couple of NSA relationships as well. And that is what really made her words linger, and probably why they cut much deeper. Until that moment, I never thought of myself as someone lacking in self-confidence. And, seriously, I'd never, ever, heard a woman say anything like that about me, at least not within earshot. Maybe they said things when I couldn't hear, who knows? But until she dropped that bomb, I never had reason to doubt myself, never had any real insecurity about being with someone. So, does the fact that I've spiraled mentally because of this make me a man-child, weak, or a straight-up puss as I've been accused? Maybe. Probably. I don't know. What I do know is I've never had anything like this happen to me before. My breakups have always been mature, mutual. Okay, there was a stupidly dramatic split in high school, but does that really count? And the advice to just learn a new technique, practice more, or get better at sex? That's not even the issue. She didn't say anything about my lack of skill or needing to improve. She didn't say I could work on it. She told her friend, point blank, that I would never measure up, in a way that no practice or effort can fix. She made it clear, it's a physical attribute, something unchangeable. I could study every technique in the Kama Sutra and still not be able to compete with what she seems to want, a guy packing equipment I'll simply never have. Should it matter? In some abstract sense, maybe not, but let's be real, it does matter to her, or she would never have said it. There's no way to unring that bell. And here's something else I need to say. I've seen it said, over and over, it's just sex. I don't understand people who think like this. For me, those words don't even make sense in a relationship with someone I love. Sure, in grad school, I had a couple of NSA partners, but even then, feelings always crept in, and I'd have to end things because I couldn't pretend it was just physical. I don't do one-night stands, and honestly, since my mid-20s, sex has always meant something more to me. That's just who I am. If that's different from other people, that's fine, good for them, but I can't change how I'm wired just to match someone else's expectations. Do I need to be my fiancé's best ever? Why wouldn't I want that? Before that night, I would have confidently believed I was. Now I know I'm not. And being told I never can be, that's more than my ego can take. If it was something I could improve with work or effort, that would be one thing. But hearing her say never? No, I'm not okay with that. Some of the most disgusting messages I've gotten tried to tell me I should just be happy that she lets me have sex with her. That idea, I can't even describe how much that offends me. Maybe I've lived my life believing in some Disney fantasy, but I always wanted to be with someone who wanted me, not someone who just allowed me because of some obligation or pity. If that makes me sensitive, or a sissy, I really don't care. I refuse to be the person who begs for sex. If whoever I'm with doesn't want me just as much as I want her, then forget it. I'd rather just pay for an escort and probably save myself a fortune in the long run. I honestly don't know, 100%, what my next step will be. I have a strong idea, but I haven't done anything yet. The only thing I know is I'm not going to fight myself or destroy my self-worth over something I can never change. Update 2. Everything came to a breaking point last night. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and just asked if I didn't love her anymore. And honestly, all I could say was that a big part of me still loved her, but after what she had said, some vital piece inside me just stopped. That simple question unleashed a conversation that spiraled deeper than I could have prepared for. I won't drag it out here, but I told her straight, if she had told me there was something I could fix, something I could improve, or do differently, I'd have thrown myself into trying. If she'd said he was somehow more attentive or that he did something I could learn, I would have listened to every word. I would have worked on any technique. I would have listened, practiced, grown, because at least there would be a path ahead. But I realized, in one cleaving moment, that there was nothing I could ever do. I could never measure up because a physical issue, something beyond my control, left me permanently behind. I couldn't get over that, maybe not now, maybe not ever. And I told her honestly, if this had all been about a one-night stand, some random guy with a huge advantage, I might eventually be able to get past it. But it wasn't some random guy, this was the man she had been wildly in love with when I first met her. Only after time did I feel her finally let go of him. That made the whole thing impossible for me to carry. She kept pleading that I was better at everything else, that I shouldn't throw away our life together for one thing. But to me, that one thing wasn't small. I told her, probably more gently than I felt, that not all factors carry equal weight. I recognize it may be a flaw in me, a sad fact of my own makeup, but that's the truth. I needed to be my partner's best, and she'd already made it clear that I can never be. I tried to soften it, to take the blame, admitting freely that maybe my attitude isn't healthy or fair, but it's who I am. For the record, this was far from a clean, clinical conversation. There was so much crying, her, me, both of us unraveling. None of this has a happy ending. Honestly, it isn't satisfying for anyone. I'm messed up about it in ways I didn't even think possible. Christmas, for everyone, is spoiled. We used to have these big family gatherings, always together, and now I have to figure out how we're even going to tell our families. My parents adored her. What am I supposed to say? That we ended things because of a comparison? She didn't cheat. If I mention that I think she's still hung up on her ex, she'll deny it and maybe end up telling them the full truth. It's screwed up no matter how I play it. At the end of the day, I feel broken. I can't escape the sense that I've failed, as a man for not living up to the comparison, and as a partner because I couldn't just man up and move past this. She begged me to consider couples counseling, and at first I refused. I couldn't see the point. At the end of all that talking, the core issue would still remain. How do you reconcile with knowing the person you want to build your life with once told a friend you'll never be as good as her ex? But seeing how shattered she was, I agreed. I'll go to counseling, for her sake, maybe for my own too, but I don't know if I can stick with it. Today I packed up a lot of my stuff, left the apartment, and am staying with a coworker until I can get my own place. She spent the whole day with her sister. I feel like absolute garbage. Even now, my chest aches with the urge to call her, to tell her I'm sorry, to beg her to come back. The cruel reality is I still love her. There's so much of me that doesn't want this to end. I want to share something from that drawn-out conversation we had, one that stuck with me because of how personal it felt. I knew comparing bodies or sexual skills wouldn't hit her the same way it struck me. So I offered her a scenario. I told her, imagine you overheard me talking with Tim and you heard me say, Jill is great, but she'll never comfort and understand me the way Tiffany did. But it's not Jill's fault. Tiffany is just the smartest, most compassionate woman I've ever known, and Jill just isn't as smart. Then, if she confronted me, my response would be, I love you for all your other qualities. Nobody makes a sandwich like you, and I think long term you won't judge me for my money. At first, she tried to argue that it was a totally different issue, but as we kept talking, she admitted it would hurt her deeply. Still, she said she wouldn't end things over it. I pressed on, in my made-up scenario, something I would never say out loud about anyone I loved. At least she could better herself, learn to be more compassionate, get more education. She couldn't change the thing that lay at the heart of our divide. If anyone is still reading, there's something else I want to say. I've heard it all, that I'm being whiny, that I'm pathetic for caring about something like this, about not being as big as someone else. Trust me, I'm not thrilled, but I never thought I was some kind of sex god. I just grew up believing women don't care about size. Some don't, but obviously, some do, and the woman I built my hopes on did. Even then, I might have moved past it if it had just been a matter of fact. But what destroyed me was knowing that, no matter what, how hard I tried, or how much I loved her, I would never be as good. That particular truth, the finality of it, has haunted me ever since. Yes, I put too much value on sex and being wanted. I wish it wasn't true, but it is. Whoever I date next, chances are they've had someone bigger, better, whatever. I just hope if that's the case, they won't still be hung up on it years down the line. I want to matter most to the person I love. Is that really so wrong? Update 3. I appreciate the kind words and concerns from everyone. But just so anyone who cares can know, it's over. I gave it my all. I went to counseling with her 3 different times, really trying to keep an open mind, trying to see if there was any way to fix what had been broken between us. But in the end, the obstacle was simply too big. I even gave her a chance to walk back what she said, or at least amend it, rethink it, anything. Instead, she doubled down. If anything, she was even more overt about it after those sessions. By then, she was clearly just as frustrated and exhausted as I was. Neither of us are actually happy about the way things turned out. This whole experience has been a nightmare, especially when it comes to explaining things to people and to our families. I tried at first to just tell people it was none of their business, but that approach failed spectacularly, and since I refused to give any details, they came up with their own stories, mainly that she cheated on me. That rumor spread like wildfire, and I've had to do a ton of damage control just to keep things from blowing up even further. I've decided to continue with therapy, this time just for myself. The whole thing has really messed with my head, and I feel completely drained. I don't think I have any self-esteem left at this point. Since we separated, I've only seen her once, and that was, without a doubt, the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. She's now firmly lodged in the angry stage, furious with me, calling me everything imaginable, and even inventing some new words to hurl my way. Update 4. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I honestly didn't think I'd be writing another one. I thought I was done with all of this, that I was moving on. I was wrong. 2 weeks ago, I was at a coffee shop near my new apartment when I saw a familiar face across the room. It was Sarah, Jill's friend, the one who was in the kitchen that night when I overheard everything. She spotted me too, and after a moment of awkward eye contact, she walked over. Jason, hi, she said, looking genuinely uncomfortable. How are you holding up? I gave her some generic response about doing fine, expecting her to make polite conversation and leave. Instead, she sat down across from me and said something that made my blood run cold. There's something you need to know about that night. About what you heard. Apparently, Sarah had been carrying around guilt for months. She told me that the conversation I overheard wasn't spontaneous. Jill had been complaining about our sex life to her for weeks leading up to that party. But here's the part that really got to me. According to Sarah, Jill had specifically asked her to come over that night because she wanted to figure out how to handle the Jason situation. She was planning to break up with you, Sarah said quietly. She told me she couldn't keep pretending to be satisfied, that she was thinking about reaching out to Bill again. My hands were shaking as I held my coffee cup. Sarah continued, explaining that Jill had only changed her mind about breaking up with me because her sister had convinced her that I was good husband material and that she shouldn't throw away security for better sex. The conversation I overheard was supposed to be private. They thought everyone was occupied with cards or movies. But that wasn't the worst part. Sarah hesitated before telling me this next bit, and I could see she was wrestling with whether to say it at all. Finally, she looked me in the eye and said, Jason, she's been in contact with Bill. She reached out to him about a month after you two split up. I felt like I was going to be sick. All those times she'd insisted she was heartbroken about our breakup, all her tears about losing me, and she'd gone running back to him the moment I was out of the picture. Are they together now? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Sarah shook her head. No, but not because she didn't try. He turned her down. He's engaged to someone else now, has been for over a year, apparently. Jill didn't know. The irony was almost too much to handle. She'd thrown away our relationship, thinking she could get back what she'd lost with Bill, only to find out he'd moved on completely. Sarah told me Jill had been devastated when Bill rejected her, and that she'd been asking about me, wondering if there was any chance I'd take her back. She wants to talk to you, Sarah said. She's been asking me to reach out, to see if you'd be willing to meet. I told Sarah absolutely not. Whatever Jill wanted to say, I didn't need to hear it. I'd already put myself through enough hell over this situation. But Sarah wasn't done. She pulled out her phone and showed me something that made my stomach drop, screenshots of text messages between Jill and Bill from right after our breakup. I shouldn't have looked, but I couldn't help myself. The messages were pathetic. Jill pouring her heart out, telling Bill she'd made a mistake getting engaged to me, that she'd never gotten over him, that she wanted another chance. Bill's responses were polite but firm. He wasn't interested, he was happy with his fiancée, he wished her well but wanted no contact. Why are you showing me this? I asked Sarah. Because you deserve to know the truth about who you were with, she said. And because maybe it'll help you stop blaming yourself for not being enough. You were never the problem, Jason. She was never over him, and she probably never would have been. I left the coffee shop feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. For months, I'd been second-guessing myself, wondering if I'd thrown away something good because of my own insecurities. Now I was finding out that everything I'd feared was true. I really had been second choice, a consolation prize while she pined for someone else. The worst part is, I can't stop thinking about those text messages. The desperation in them, the way she'd basically begged Bill to take her back. It made me realize that every I love you she'd ever said to me was conditional. She loved me as long as Bill wasn't available. I've been a mess these past 2 weeks. My therapist says this new information should help me move on, that knowing the truth should bring closure. But honestly, it just feels like ripping open a wound that was finally starting to heal. I keep wondering what would have happened if Bill had said yes. Would she have called off our wedding and run back to him without a second thought? The crazy part is, Sarah told me that Jill is now claiming she made a huge mistake, that she realizes I was the best thing that ever happened to her. But how am I supposed to believe that when I know she only reached that conclusion after Bill rejected her? It feels like I'm still just the backup plan. I haven't decided whether to tell anyone else about what I learned. Part of me wants to call Jill and confront her about the lies, about reaching out to Bill, about everything. But another part of me thinks I should just let sleeping dogs lie. We're over, she can't hurt me anymore, and digging deeper into this mess isn't going to bring me peace. I don't know what the right answer is anymore. I just know that finding out the truth has somehow made everything hurt all over again.